On July 16, 1945, in the desert of New Mexico, the world changed forever. The first atomic bomb was detonated, the Trinity test. The father of the bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer, watched the mushroom cloud rise. And later, when asked about that moment, he quoted an ancient Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita. He said, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." But there is a part of that story that is often left out. 7 years later, a student asked Oppenheimer a strange question. He asked, "Was the bomb at Alamogordo the first one to be detonated?" Oppenheimer paused. He looked at the student and said, "Well, yes, in modern times." What did he mean by that? Was it just a metaphor, or did one of the smartest men in history know something we didn't? Did he know that thousands of years ago, on the plains of the Indus Valley, the sky had already burned? Today, we are going to look at the evidence that suggests nuclear war didn't start in the 20th century. It happened 4,000 years ago. Welcome to the hidden history of the Mahabharata. To find the truth, we must travel to modern-day Pakistan, to the Sindh province. Here lies the ruins of Mohenjo-daro. It was one of the largest settlements of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Built around 2500 BC, it was a marvel of engineering. It had a grid system, advanced plumbing, and multi-story brick houses. It was a metropolis. But the name Mohenjo-daro isn't its real name. We don't know what they called themselves. Mohenjo-daro is a modern name. It literally translates to the Mound of the Dead. And the name is fitting because when archaeologists like R.D. Banerjee began excavating the site in the 1920s, they found a city frozen in terror. Unlike Pompeii, which was buried by a volcano, or cities destroyed by invading armies, Mohenjo-daro was different. They found 44 skeletons scattered in the streets. They weren't buried in graves. They were lying where they fell. Fathers, mothers, and children. Some were still holding hands. There were no signs of battle. No sword marks on the bones, no crushed skulls from clubs, no charred remains from a normal fire. The skeletons were just sprawled out, as if they were walking down the street one minute and dead the next. Archaeologists call it the sudden death. Whatever killed these people happened instantly. It happened so fast that the bodies were left to rot in the open. But here is the strange part. Scavengers didn't touch them. Thousands of years later, the bones were still there. No animals had dragged them away. Why would wolves and vultures avoid a free meal? Unless the bodies themselves were poison. This brings us to the most controversial piece of evidence. In the 1960s and 70s, researchers began to re-examine the site. Some claim that Soviet scholars found pockets of radiation in the skeletons that were 50 times higher than the natural background level. That is the same level of radiation you would find in the bodies of Hiroshima and Nagasaki victims. But it's not just the bones, it's the stones. Scattered throughout the site, archaeologists found black stones. At first glance, they look like pottery fragments. But when you analyze them, they are something else entirely. They are fused together, melted. Scientists call this vitrification. To turn rock into glass, you need heat, extreme heat. Volcanic lava burns at around 1200 degrees Celsius. But to fuse these clay vessels instantly, you need temperatures of over 3000 degrees. There was no volcano near Mohenjo-daro. There were no forges capable of reaching that temperature. The only thing in nature that creates that kind of heat is lightning strike, or a nuclear explosion. We have seen this glass before. After the Trinity test in New Mexico, the desert sand was turned into a layer of green glass. We call it Trinitite. The stones at Mohenjo-daro look suspiciously similar. So we have a city of instant death. We have radioactive skeletons. We have vitrified stone. Mainstream history tells us this is impossible. They say ancient humans only had spears and arrows. But the ancient texts tell a very different story. The Mahabharata is one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. It's massive, 10 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey combined. Most historians treat it as mythology, a story of gods and demons fighting a cosmic war. But if you read the descriptions of the weapons used in the Kurukshetra war, they don't sound like magic swords. They sound like technology. Listen to this passage, translated from the ancient text. It describes a weapon called the Brahmastra. A single projectile, charged with all the power of the universe, an incandescent column of smoke and flame, as bright as the 1,000 suns, rose in all its splendor. Does that sound like a sword to you, or does it sound like a mushroom cloud? The text continues, and this is where it gets terrifyingly accurate. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death, which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and the Andakas. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. The hair and nails fell out. Pottery broke without apparent cause, and the birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. Think about that. Hair and nails fell out. That is a classic symptom of acute radiation poisoning. Ancient writers in 2500 BC couldn't have known about radiation sickness. They knew about sword cuts, they knew about arrow wounds, but they didn't know that an invisible poison could make your hair fall out days later. Unless they saw it happen. And foodstuffs were infected. That sounds exactly like radioactive fallout contaminating the food supply. The soldiers in the story were told to wash themselves and their equipment in the water to survive. Decontamination. How could a primitive storyteller describe nuclear winter 4,000 years before the atom was split? So what really happened at Mohenjo-daro? Skeptics will tell you it was a massacre by invading Aryans, or perhaps a sudden flood, or a disease. And they are right to be skeptical. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The radiation readings are debated. The glass could be from high-temperature pottery kilns that collapsed. But the coincidences are piling up. We have the physical evidence of vitrification. We have the textual evidence of the Mahabharata describing atomic explosions. And we have the quote from Oppenheimer himself, a man who built the modern bomb, yet believed he was just repeating history. In the West, we view time as a straight line. We start in caves, we invent fire, we build iPhones, and we go to Mars. Progress is always forward. But in the East, in India, time is a circle, a cycle, the yugas. They believe that civilization rises to incredible heights and then destroys itself, only to start all over again from the ashes. Maybe we're not the first advanced civilization on Earth. Maybe we're just the latest ones to rediscover the fire. The ruins of Mohenjo-daro are a warning. The skeletons in the street, holding hands, didn't know their world was about to end. They thought they were safe. They thought their technology made them powerful. Just like us. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to Hidden History Decoded. We're just scratching the surface. I'll see you in the next one.